Hey everybody, Steve from the Pinball Room. Welcome back. I'm excited. Today we have what I consider like a milestone video, where this new milestone where for the last year and a half or 2 years we've been working on this project, and I've been wanting to get to this point where we can really start to see elements that bring the pinball machine to life even more visually. And I mean, for me, a pinball machine is like a piece of art as much as it is a toy and something fun to play with, right? And so obviously the artwork is a huge portion of that, but also just the LEDs, the lighting, the global illumination, the insert lighting, all the light shows. For me, that's a huge thing that I really, really love about pinball machines. And so I'm finally to the point where I feel like we can start talking about that for this specific project. All right, before we jump to that though, I just got to say really fast, I got to give a huge shout out to our latest Patreon supporter, Alec Dunn. Thank you so much. Multi-ball level. I really appreciate your support, guys. It's meant the world to me. Everybody who's coming in and been supporting and making this just even easier for me to keep going and continue and push forward. So thank you so much. There's some great merch coming out to you guys on Patreon. Once you hit your 3 month of support, I got some fun stuff coming out to you guys. All right, so back to our video. So the goal for today, by the end of this video, we're gonna have LEDs connected. We're gonna have lights going. We're gonna be playing with the colors. I've got a chunk of inserts here I'm gonna show you. We'll go through and show some examples of the different types of inserts and what I'm thinking, which ones are gonna make sense where, okay? So if you've been following along, we did the live stream not too long ago. We talked a lot about game rules. And for me, I felt like, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can go about building your project, right? Some people dive straight into like the artwork. Some people dive straight into like sound and audio and all different ways to go about it. There's no right or wrong way. For me, I just felt like until I had at least a basic understanding, like the foundation of my gameplay and my rules, I wouldn't really know exactly what all inserts to put where. Some of them are going to be obvious, but others less so. Because until I have the game modes down and whether I'm having different bonuses and different types of jackpots and different places where you start the modes and things like that, I wouldn't know exactly where to put the inserts to represent each one of those, right? And how many I needed. Do I want to reuse one insert to show both a hurry up and a standard shot, or do I want those separate? So I feel like I'm getting that fairly well figured out. Here's a quick little screenshot of my playfield with what I've got laid out here. It might be a little hard to see, but these are some placements of some of the, like the core inserts I know I'll just need to have that are independent of just like the general shot inserts, right, that we're gonna need to have. So let's take a second and kind of zoom in and talk about some of these specific shots I'm considering, right? First and foremost, let's talk about here kind of the top left where you see this 2x, 3x, and 4x. This is all about those inline drop targets. And if you're part of the live stream, you heard me talking about, and probably in a couple of the other videos I've covered it, one of the core kind of like mechanics that I want to do here with the game, one of the game mechanics is, this is a tight shot, and I want the reward to be pretty valuable if you can make all 3 of these. I've yet to do it myself in a game, but obviously I'm not one of the top end players, so I'm sure other people will be able to do it. But the idea is, right, that you'll be able to lock a ball behind that third drop target, kind of like in TNA. So not behind each drop target, but behind that last one up there where it says 4x. But you've got to unlock it along the way. There's a progression, right? You've got to go through and you've got to hit that first drop target, and then the second drop target, then the third drop target, then your 4th shot will get in there. The drop target will come back up and trap and hold your ball. Then you've got to make a 5th shot to get in there and release it. So it's a series of 5 shots that are fairly tight, and they're not super easy to get. And so I feel it's worthwhile to have a good reward there. So it's going to be kind of basically 2 things here. The first, and what we're talking about here with the inserts, is as you go through and knock down each one of these drop targets, I want there to be a reward for that. So the very first one will be a 2x multiplier. And then if you're able to get the next one, a 3x, so it's progressive. I'd like to have an insert on the playfield that can be lit, that can show you and not have to have players look up on the LCD for it. Maybe it'll be redundant and we'll show it up here as well, but I really want it to just be on the playfield. People can be looking at the playfield and see pretty much all the information they need to understand the progression, what's going on with the game. So they hit down that first drop target, the 2x multiplier will light up so they'll know it's there. Now this is where I'm considering putting the insert, is right there, okay, right behind that drop target, but maybe we'll put it somewhere else on the playfield. But I know I want to indicate that there is going to be a 2x multiplier and that you've collected it so it's lit, and then a 3x and a 4x progressively, right? So those are inserts that I want that are going to be dedicated just to be tracking that and showing that to the player. Okay, so let's continue on. The next one right in front of those inline drop targets is a label that says Super Jackpot. And that, for me, is a pretty key part of my game. There's got to be a Super Jackpot you can collect. And I feel like I want to have a specific insert for that. And again, it's going to be one of these more difficult shots you've got to be able to hit here with that upper flipper. So it's limited in how you can get there, and so it's going to obviously be worth the higher reward. So that's the insert I want. All right, the next one right next to it right here in the center comes through the staircase and the drop target, which I'm affectionately calling Heaven's Gate right now. So, and I'll admit I'm a little up in the air on whether there needs to be a dedicated insert that interacts and tells you information about Heaven's Gate, you know, needing to go up or down, because you can see if it's up or down clearly, right? But there's going to be steps in the game through the modes where you'll need to knock on Heaven's Gate. You'll need to hit that shot, and so that could be flashing to indicate that. Maybe it's just part of the artwork. Maybe we're just working in the artwork and we like label it Heaven's Gate or draw something to make that integrate in. So that's a little bit up in the air, maybe back and forth. Maybe it's not an insert. For now, I think it'll be valuable to have it as an insert. Then just to the right of that, we've got the captive ball, this shot, right? Which I'm using for Hermit multi-ball. And so I definitely want to put a flasher in there to indicate when they need to be making that shot. And then we've got our super spinner. I want to indicate when the super spinner shot is lit once you've learned that. So the spinner value is going to be worth more. This is also that miniature loop into the VUC, which is where you're going to go to be able to do your song selection. So when you're ready to start a new song, I want that light flashing, indicating, hey, come over here to pick your new song. So I think I want separate inserts for that. Last but not least, up here in the upper, we've got in front of this right ramp, we've got backstage pass is what it's being called right now. This is one of the ideas we got from the live stream that a couple of you threw out. We talked about a couple of different places where it could go. This is where I feel like it's going to work the best. And this is because you remember when you get into the staircase multi-ball, you got all the balls up here, and if you drain really fast, you want to get back up there, instead of having to wait to complete the staircase and get all the way back up, we have this diverter now that's working that we're going to open up during that multi-ball sequence and allow people to sneak back here, backstage pass, get to the back of the stage. This is going to be the stage, and so I want this to be lit up and let people know, like, hey, backstage pass is open, make this shot, we'll open the diverter and let you get back up here. So I think that's going to be a good, important insert to have lit up. Okay, coming down a little bit, the next one here is this upper, or this middle flipper here, right? We have the shot, we can open it and trap the ball behind it back to the start lane. I think this is where we're going to have things set up to be able to do an add a ball during multi-ball. And it's also going to be a way to go through and start a different Led Zeppelin multi-ball, separate from the staircase multi-ball. Right now, there's three primary multi-balls: the staircase multi-ball, the Hermit captive ball multi-ball, and then completing all these stand-ups to spell and drop targets to spell Led Zeppelin. That's where you'll sync the ball to be able to start that multi-ball mode. So add a ball and then starting a mode. And so we want to insert in here, indicating people like, hey, now's a good time to be hitting the ball back behind here, right? The other part you'll see here, just in the center of the play field, I've got just written out Led Zeppelin. I want to insert per letter. That's going to go through and indicate as they are completing these stand-ups and drop targets and spelling out Led Zeppelin. We'll show the progression of that being completed and making progress towards that multi-ball. And then below that, and right now I'm playing around with the star pattern because I like it. We might do a different way, but we've got 10 different songs that people can play through, right? So I want 10 different inserts, one for each song that represents when you're in that mode and whether you've completed it and are ready to move on to the next one or not. So it's going to do that. It's going to keep track of that general progression throughout the entire game of how many songs you have completed. And I like this pattern because you can do like an inner ring or an outer ring. And let's think of that kind of like Star Trek, right? Stern Star Trek, where you have the grid down below, and you can do complete like 3 in a row, 3 on a side to unlock it a little advantage. The captain's chair, right? Maybe we do a similar thing down here, where if you complete any 2 in like a row, it gives you something, or if you complete all 5 inner ones or all 5 outer ones. There's ways we can show that visually to kind of give this sense of like progression. If you pick the right songs, the hard ones, the easy ones, etc., to then unlock these other mini wizard modes or other advantages within the game, right? Other point values and things like that. So those are kind of all these core inserts that I think we need, totally outside just the fact that we want inserts showing, you know, hey, this is the shot you need to be hitting. So we'll need inserts, general inserts for just for each of the shots. We're going to want to have something over here by this pop bumper to indicate that that's a shot. We'll probably have things along kind of by our out lanes and in lanes, right? As you collect in lanes and out lanes, we'll add some inserts there as well. Those are kind of standard. And then last but not least, I don't have this here in this picture, and it's still pretty early on, but up here for this backboard above the drop targets up here in the upper play field, I really love the idea that was given by one of you to have this look and appear more like the actual stage of a concert. And so up above here, we're going to need to work in some different lights that can be that can have their own light show, kind of like with the GI, but probably their own light show that makes it feel like you're like, you know, goes along with the video footage we're showing for that song mode. It makes it feel like you're at a concert, and have this with artwork looking like it is a stage. I want you to feel like you're like on the stage up here. So there'll be some more inserts I will need to go back here also. I haven't figured out. Again, that's going to be for later. All right, I went on plenty long just talking about the different inserts and where they're going to be. But now that we have this general idea of where they're going to be, now the fun part comes through and figuring out, okay, what type of inserts do we want to put in there? Do we want arrows? Do we want stars? Do we want starbursts? Do we want circles? Do we want the little banana insert? All the different ones, right? So let me go through and show you a little something here. All right, so I wanted to show you this. This was my Christmas present to myself a couple years ago when I was just barely starting my project. You might think that's a organizer, Steve. That's kind of a weird present to give yourself. Well, it's what's inside that gets me really excited. I've been waiting for so long to get to this point where I can start playing with these things. It's been sitting here collecting dust. So what I have inside of this is basically a collection of all the different clear inserts that I've been able to collect from Pinball Life while they've had them in stock. I've got square and rectangular ones with some fun diffusion patterns on them. We've got, of course, different round starburst ones, right? At different sizes and shapes, all the way down to the teeny tiny little ones over here, teeny tiny. We've got squares and rectangles as well of different sizes and shapes. We've got arrows. We've got the bullet shape. We've got this kind of obtuse triangle in two sizes, kind of different little wedge things that are pretty cool. And then by far my favorite that I found so far is this round one with this radial diffusion pattern. I am loving the way this looks with lights. We'll show you here in just a little bit. So you might ask, Steve, why are all your plastics clear? Why don't you have any colored plastics? Don't you need colored plastics? I probably do. To be honest, I probably do. But right now, my goal is I want to go through and see how far we can get with clear plastics. And by how far, I mean how well can we light these up and have them look good and strong and vibrant. There's lots of fun things we can do with them. My hope is, well, maybe not my hope, but my original vision for the artwork and everything was a fairly kind of monochromatic cabinet and play field that's mostly just kind of like grayscale, a lot of clears. I even have the translucent drop targets plastics, right, that can be lit up and be glowing a different color. My vision was I want to have it to be very similar to, I was inspired very much by the black and white Twilight Zone project that probably many of you have seen. If not, I'll throw a link into it in my description down below. It's just a gorgeous pin. I love the idea of just a totally like blacked out black and white Twilight Zone. Then with the lights, it comes to life. About the time I started, I was working on my sketches and plans for all this. I had that idea. Stern came out with their Munsters pinball machine, I believe, was around that time. And I saw their black and white version. I just loved them. Like, yes, that's what I want mine to look like. I love that artwork package, that option. There was little pops of color here and there in the artwork, right? But by and large, it was kind of like just grays and whites and blacks and different tones. And then when it lights up, it comes to life. And that's what I want for my pinball machine is I want, like, depending on the mode, this is to be a very warm red, hot mode versus a cool blue or green mode or electric. And I want to be able to have that, you know, carry through with the themes and be just have most of the playfield is totally taken over by the color going on with the GI and the inserts themselves. So I'm not sure how well that's going to work out. One of the drawbacks of the clear plastics is, I mean, it's really clear, and so you don't, there's kind of like, if it's a colored plastic, when you light it up, it gets a little more of a glow to it than just like seeing like the hot point behind it. On these clear ones, you have the LED behind them, and if it's red, you kind of see that red dot. It doesn't evenly glow as much, right? It doesn't have like that diffusion layer. So that's something we might need to play with. Maybe I can do all these clear ones, but maybe I'll need to also slide in some sort of a similar shaped slip of just like opaque acrylic or something, or PETG, to get the color I want on this. Like, we're gonna have to experiment a little bit, but I really want the ability to go through and have these be a strong color of any color I want. So that's where we're starting. All right, I've gone about that long enough. All right, that's an overview of my little toy stash. So now the fun thing is going through and taking all these different sizes and shapes and options and putting them on the actual play field and starting to kind of, you know, play around with, okay, what would make sense? What will look good? Which one should be bigger? Which one should be smaller? So I'm gonna jump over and play around with that for a little bit. We'll kind of time lapse it so you don't get bored and see what we come up with, all right? this is what I came up with. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I am wishing that I had a couple of different shapes than what I have right here available, but overall I think this is gonna work out pretty good. So for my primary shots here, you'll see I've got like 3 of these larger arrows that fit for the ramps and for this orbit. And then I've got the bullet ones I'm using to show the shot underneath the left ramp, and for the horseshoe shot, and for like the hermit ball, and for the spinner, just so those are also tight together. So those are still like kind of like an arrow indicator for a shot, but they're skinnier. I think they fit better there. And then the thing I'm unsure about is fitting the word Led Zeppelin. If I do these square inserts for each letter, Zeppelin is really long, goes like all the way across the play field. Feels a little larger, a little more cluttered than what I would like. I'm thinking I might wait on that and kind of see more what I come up with for the final artwork and where Led Zeppelin fits in. Maybe it doesn't have to be like an insert per letter. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's a little, or they're smaller inserts, maybe it's a little bit smaller letters. I'm using these medium-sized squares. Maybe I do the smaller squares. I'll have to look around maybe at some other play fields and try to get a little more inspiration and see how that can fit in there. So I wanted to integrate with the artwork really well and not just kind of like fill up that whole entire space. So otherwise though, yeah, we've got like inserts showing in front of the right ramp, you know, the arrow to hit the ramp, and then the square below that, the rectangle, it's gonna say backspace pass will light up. We've got a couple of things in front of the hermit ball, one to indicate to hit that shot, and another one, square one, that'll indicate like hermit multi-ball is like ready to go. By the spinner, we've got a round one in front of it for super spinner. We've got a square one for song selection. Plus we've got the bullet for the arrow saying you need to make that shot. I did go through and I threw an insert in front of each of the stand-ups over here on the right for Led Zeppelin. Yeah, so I think I like that. Honestly, that's one thing, like since I have inserts on each of these targets that spell out Led Zeppelin, I might not really need to have Led Zeppelin spelled out across the middle of the playfield as well. Like, am I gonna put the letters on these and on those? I definitely want some inserts here with lights to kind of get people's attention and help make sure they understand that there are targets underneath this left ramp that they need to hit. And then up here, kind of this upper left area by the left orbit, it was kind of just empty. And I was kind of concerned that I didn't have much going on there. Like there's not really a whole lot to communicate there. Then my wife saw these really skinny oval ones and she had this great idea of what do we do with them like this? And they're horizontal and they're kind of in this line and you can like animate them as the ball rips around. And so I took that idea and I was like, actually I really like that idea because this is kind of a harder loop. That left loop under the stair is kind of a harder shot. So this could be like even just like a cool animation might be enough, but it could also be a thing where, you know, maybe once you make like 6 of those loops in a single ball or in probably not in a row, but maybe it's something that gets reset every ball, but like once you make 6 of those loops, that earns you a little something, right? Like making that repeated shot. So then I took that idea like, well, would it be dumb to do that also for the horseshoe? Because one of the modes I have figured out that I do want to do is kind of like a hurry up thing. Well, I guess it's not really a hurry up, but in a very short amount of time, you'll have like 30 seconds to see how many horseshoe loops you can make. Boom, 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 boom. And this could be kind of like a meter, right? That like each time you make one, it lights up, boom, boom, boom. You see this progression until it's all the way full. I like having those because I think they can serve a purpose. They can track, you know, like completed shots and things like that. And it does a really good job also of filling that space and getting something visual that could be really fun and interactive. It could kind of like be going up and down like a meter, or just to kind of like progress, show progression as well. So anyways, I like that idea a lot. So huge kudos to my wife for coming up with that one. The last thing that's not in here, like I talked about, was up here behind the back box, the upper play field, the stage. I don't have inserts set up there yet because I'm not like taping things down, but I will be putting a bunch of LEDs. But like I said, that's gonna be like a separate thing to make that look like a light show. But as far as for the play field, I think this is looking actually pretty good. Kind of the star pattern down here, I think I explained that already, right? It's what I'm thinking about for the album covers. It uses those special radial inserts that will look, I think, even more cool up close. So I'm gonna give those a try. Anyway, I feel pretty good. I feel like everything's fitting. It doesn't seem super crowded. Overall, though, I feel like this is going to fit pretty well, and I like it. I feel like it's a lot of lights, but I don't feel it's just like an insane amount of lights and inserts. I don't know really that we need any more for sure. And really, the last thing for me is just figuring out this center play field where Led Zeppelin's going to be. I'm not sure about how I want to track that versus all the inserts for the drop targets on the left. So I'll think around that a little bit. I think it can be a decent start, though. So. All right, so now we're on to the fun part. We're actually gonna start talking about the actual lighting with the LEDs. And the very first thing you're going to need to do if you wanna follow along with me is have your nano control board. Make sure there is 12 volt power supply going to it because the board needs 12 volts of power. And then you also want a 5 volt line running into it because it's going to use that 5 volts and send it back out. The other thing you're going to need are some LEDs. Now I'm using a set of LEDs. It came with my fast starter bundle. It comes with 50 of these. I've already popped out 10 or so of these. It comes with 50 LEDs. And these are great because I'll show you just one. There's a nice little screw hole on one end of the board that doesn't hit any of the connections or anything you need to worry about. So you can take a screw and you can put that into your play field. It's already got pins soldered in to where all I have to do is just hook in some quick connections there. Let me show that up to you closer. Okay, it's already got pins in there, so you can just connect right into it with little wires. This is the LED here on the back. Okay, hopefully it's going to focus on that a little bit. And each one of these, we call it an LED. It really technically has 3 LEDs. There's a red, a green, and a blue. Hence why they're called RGB LEDs. And once you send a full signal through all 3 of these, they become white. Okay, or you can also isolate it down to just pure red, just pure green, just pure blue. So you'll need a bunch of these. These LEDs are called WS2812. Yes, I got that right. WS2812. It was like the original name of these LEDs when they got created. Now there's a gazillion versions out there. You don't have to use the ones that fast sell. This is just nice and handy. There's 50 of them. They come part of the starter bundle. I recommend it. They've already have pins. They're nice and easy. They're perfect ones for screwing up underneath your playfield. But you can use any type of LED, string LED lights you see anywhere else. Anything that is a WS2812 type or version, right? They're going to be compatible with the Nano. It's going to interpret the signals just fine, and you can use it. Okay, so you need a bunch of those. Now on each one of these, and any LED you use, but the fast ones are labeled nice and clear. Okay, so here, if you look at this picture, you'll be able to see that in the middle here, you'll see a 5V, an arrow, and then GND for each of the pins. Right, that labels the pins. One pin needs to be holding the ground for your voltage. The other outside pin is your line voltage of 5 volts. And then the center pin for all these is going to be your signal line. Okay? Now it's very important that you do not get the wires reversed for your power or you can fry an LED. Ask me how I know. Only wasted an hour this morning trying to figure out why aren't my LEDs working no matter what I do. I reached out to the guys on Slack. They're all trying to troubleshoot for me. Finally at some point it dawned on me. I realized, oh wait, I think I reversed it. And sure enough, one of them got fried. And that was causing the whole rest of the chain to not work. Anyways, we'll have 5 volt in on one, the signal line in the middle one, and then the common ground on the other pin. And we'll just daisy chain them, all right, from one to the other. And by daisy chain, here's an example. This is what I mean. So I've got just a wire on one end, just a connector, and this is what's going to go and connect to my Nano board, okay? The red is for the 5 volt. These are kind of backwards. My signal is actually the black one in the middle. Ignore my colors, these are not the recommended colors, but it's going to work as long as we're consistent. And then it goes to my first LED, okay? I've got it to where the red line's coming to where the 5 volt in needs to go. And right on the other side, I've got another wire coming out, okay? Coming in, coming out, and then goes to my next one. Comes in and comes out. And to the next one, okay? You've got these loops. Now, obviously, you want these loops underneath your playfield, right? But what you can do is buy a whole bunch of these wires already pre-crimped and ready to go from like Alibaba or AliExpress of all sorts of length. I've got from 12 inches down to like 6 inches. You can go through and get these, and then, you know, if these are going from LED to LED, that's not too much sticking out. That's a lot more easy to work with, right? So you can get different lengths to go between the distances, right, between your LEDs underneath the. So, super dirt cheap. I think, you know, both these bundles were maybe like 20 bucks or something for like 100 cables or more. But it's cheap as long as you're willing to wait for it to come from China. But they work great. Got a simple little chain here. And what we're going to do, now that we've got them wired correctly, we're going to take the open-ended one, we're going to plug it into our Nano board, make sure we're matching the 5 volt and the line, the common line, and then the signal line. And once we have those connected, we'll go back inside our CoolTerm terminal emulator. And then I'm going to go through and show you some of the commands we need to use to start sending some simple color signals through to each one of these. Okay, so let's do that. All right, so this is the terminal emulator called CoolTerm that we're using. Very first thing you want to do, if you haven't already, make sure your Nano controller is powered on.
connected via USB so that our system here, our computer, will actually be able to find it and connect to it. All right. Once you do all that, go here inside the app, click on Options. If it doesn't bring up serial port, go to serial port options. We're going to click here on the ports, and it should list 4 ports. It'll list several probably. I've got like a Bluetooth, my Wonder Boom, incoming port. But typically at the bottom, I believe, you'll see 4 in a row that will say USB, serial, and some numbers. You should see 4 of them. What we really care about are the middle 2 numerically. Now, these might not be listed in numerical order. Mine happen to be right now. The first time I messed around with this, they were not in numerical order, and I wasn't really paying attention, so I kept connecting to the wrong port. So you should see 4 of them. Look at their numerical order. You want to choose the 3rd one numerically. So for me, it's going to be the one that ends in 02. Okay, click on that one. You want to go through and change your baud rate. The default is going to be like 9600. You're going to want to change that here in custom to 921,600. Okay, 921600. Hit OK. We're going to leave everything else the same. We're going to go over here to terminal. We're going to leave it in raw mode. Enter key emulation is going to default to CR plus LF. We want to change that to just CR. We want to check the little box that says local echo. That simply makes it to where we can actually see the commands we're typing in and not just the responses from the controller, which I think makes it way more intelligible as just a regular human. So turn on local echo, and now we can hit OK. It's going to save all those changes. We can see down here on the bottom left in red it says disconnected, but it does list a serial port. Okay, that's one we have selected, but we have not opened a connection to it. So let's click on connect, and now we're inside. It says connected. We have like a timer running for how long we've been connected. We got a bunch of green lights over here, right, in the UI. Now we're ready to go through and send commands. But before we do, let's just triple check that you're in the right port, because maybe you picked the wrong one like I did the first time. The way to do that is to type in here ID : and then your return key. Okay. Now, it should come back with something like this: RGB, FPCPU, and some numbers. Those first 3, RGB, that's the name of this port. And if we see RGB, we know we're on the right one to control our RGB LEDs. If you see something that says ID : net, that means you're on the first port, or the second one numerically, but you're on the wrong one. So make sure you're connected to this one that says RGB, or else you won't be getting the right commands going to the right places. Okay. The other thing, little gotchas with this command window thing, it's very, very particular. If I type in something and I do something incorrectly, I can't hit backspace. It just starts giving me dots. I can't hit delete or anything. If you mess up, all you can do is hit enter. It'll give you a little error message, XX, U, RX, F, things like that. But if you do a correct command, 2 letters, a colon, and then the thing, for us we're just going to do ID, we get a good response, okay? Now, in the FAST documentation, there's examples by Brian Madden that tells you kind of the 3 most common little commands you can use to mess with your LED RGBs through this interface window. Okay, one is called RA. Okay, now I'm actually going to change this to caps lock for you. RA. Oh, I hit the wrong button. RA and then colon. Okay, and this is going to set all your RGB LEDs to a single value. Okay, so if I do RA and then I type in a hex value, such as FF0000, and that equates out to red. The first 2 digits, or characters, I should say, right, control the red LED in that set of 3 on the actual LED board. Remember I told you there's really 3 diodes inside there. There's a red LED diode, a green, and a blue. The first 2 characters control your red one. FF is basically like 100% full power. Okay, and the other 2 I have set at 00. 00 basically means black, or just like off. No energy, no value, no output of anything from those 2 diodes. So only the red one's going to turn on. So this is going to be just 100% clear, unadulterated red. All right. So before we go any further, let's see if we can actually get this to work here on camera.
All right. It's a new setup for me. I got my laptop down here recording. We got a camera. Let's see if we can get all this to work and put it together in post for you. We need to turn off this light. All right, now we're going to take our daisy chained LEDs. We're going to take the one that just has regular cables. We're going to plug this in to the first set of pin connectors for RGB LEDs on the Nano controller. So if you're looking at it straight on and your USB cord is coming out the top, is going to be the one on the bottom left. It should be labeled 0 to 63. It's going to handle the first 64 LED that we have connected. All right, plug it in. Now if we've done everything correctly, back down here, the entries again, I've got RA:FF0000. This should give us just red. Bingo, look at that, we got some red lights. I'll turn some lights off in here to make it easier to see. Okay, so you see my chain of LEDs. Point them at the camera so you can see them more easily, right? We've got a few up here, okay? And if you're not familiar with hex values, you can just Google them. There's different charts and things that will show you a list of like all the possible hex values. I think it's kind of overkill. What I'm going to share with you guys in my notes, and I'll put them on the screen here in just a second, is a list of kind of like the top 8, I think it is, or 10 most common colors that I found that work with RGB LEDs. All right, I'm just gonna put my laptop right here, make it easier for me to work. Okay. All right. So I told you that FF00000 is red. For green, if we do 00FF00, so the first and last diodes are off, but the middle one's all the way up. That's what's considered pure green. Not sure how well you can see all these colors. All right. And then if we do the same thing again, but we do the first 2 sets of characters as zeros, so 0000 and then FF, that's going to be what's considered pure blue by the blue LED. Okay, that's like the brightest and strongest blue that you can get. Now, of course, you can mix those, right? So, for example, I was playing around trying to find some different colors that I really liked. Like, what's the closest to like maybe like a pink? So if I do RA:, and then DC143C, yeah, that's kind of like a hot pink. Okay, turns out pretty good. Again, it's hard to see this probably exactly just through the camera. I'm sure the colors aren't exactly, you know, true to life. what you're seeing here versus what I'm seeing in real life. It's very possible you go through and look up online like some really cool colors, right? And you'll type them in and they might look very white or just very dull, or you're like, oh, I saw this pink I like a little bit better, this other pink. You type them in, and to the naked eye, you might not really see much of a difference. That's because with just RGB blending of red, green, and blue, there's still a limit on exactly all the different aspects of color that we're used to in the real world, right? The hue and saturation, all of that. We have more limited options here for RGB LEDs. You can't really get a good brown. A gold is going to be very difficult. You can't really do grays. All you can do are degrees of how bright the white light is, okay? Things like that. So you need to do a little bit of experimentation. Like I said, I've got a handful of colors. Let me run through them really fast of what I think are really good ones. We saw the red, we saw the hot pink. This one will be more subtle, but it's a different type of pink. See if you can tell the difference here. I'm not sure if you can tell that difference. In the real life, it makes a difference. This is more pale, a little more white. That might be too subtle. Here's a good blue. It's not just the pure blue, but it's just a little bit different, more rich color blue that I like. It's a little bit cooler. All right, a little more electric blue. There's also this blue that I really like. If you ever type in a command and you mess it up like I just did there, I've had tried to hit the backspace. I forgot you can't backspace. It'll just put in dots. You hit return, you'll get like an R1 and an F. F just means like failed command. We don't know what gibberish you're sending us, Steve. We can't do it. Try again. So I'll try again. RA:01AFF. Let's see if you can tell the difference here on this one. There you go. I think that was noticeable in the camera. A little bit darker blue, a little deeper blue. The other one's a little bit lighter. Let's try a purple. DB00FF. Okay, clearly different on the screen. This is more of a purple. And then RA, instead of the straight green, I like a 14FF00. It's just a little bit different green. Got a little more red into it. I like that green. RA, let's do, this is the closest to yellow I've been able to find that I think is a decent yellow. It's hard to find a good yellow with just these LEDs, just the RGB. So here's one, FF8C00. Kind of far from the camera. That's kind of the best yellow I've been able to find. It's not quite orange, it's not quite green. RA, here's an orange, FF3D00. The things I found with orange, and I don't know if you can hardly tell that's orange, maybe just kind of like a faded red. It was hard to find an orange that looked good based on orange that I looked up. Any orange I looked up a hex value, it came out looking like yellow. I had to crank it up and really find one that's really more of like a shade of red, and that came across to me. This is the closest to orange I've been able to see, and it's not even so much orange. It's almost more just kind of like a sunlight color, which is kind of yellowish orangish, right? Anyway, it's fun. It's difficult to go through and find colors that you like exactly. You're going to want to do a lot of experimentation until you find the shades that work. And this is just the raw LEDs. The other thing you need to worry about, right, is when you're putting that in front of an insert and how that might diffuse. Now, if you're using clear inserts like me, it's not going to matter too much. But if you're using colored inserts and you put a color behind that colored insert that doesn't match exactly, you got a dark orange insert and you got a light orange color, like how's that going to blend through and actually appear to the actual player, right? You'll need to do some experimentation, but I think it's fun experimentation. Some of us are more anal and will care more about exactly how it looks than others, and that's fine. We're all different. We're all unique human beings. All right, now the RA command just sends out the exact same color to every single LED. Kind of boring and probably not too useful. You're not just going to want every single light in your pinball cabinet to be green or to be blue. You're probably going to want some variation, right? So the way you do that is, well, the way you ideally do it is through Mission Pinball Framework and through a light show that will send out all the commands, and MPF will send out the right commands. What we can do here, though, get them all turned on to a certain color. So let's say RA, and let's just make them all white. FF, FF, FF. Bingo. Everything is just white, okay? And we're going to focus on these last three here at the end of my string. And I've got how many LEDs? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So what we can do through this terminal app, CoolTerm, is we can send a command to an individual LED and change it without changing the other ones. These will all stay white. And I'm going to change the very last one in this string here, okay? Which is my 7th LED, which, since everything starts in zeros, 0, 0, it's really going to be identified by 0, 6, right? Because the very first one will be 0, 0. So my terminal here, I'm going to do RS for like a single instead of all. RA for all, RS for single LED. Before I put in my hex value, no spaces or anything, I'm just going to put in the value of this LED. And they're hex values. So you can only go 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, up to like 0, 9 or 10. After that, the hexadecimal values kind of get funky. You're going to start throwing in letters, and there's a chart that you'll need to use for that, and I'll link that in here also, a couple of charts in my description you can go through if you want. But I'm only going to go to number 7, so I'm going to go RS06, and then without anything else, I'm going to type in the value I want it to be. I'm going to change it to be red, and I'm going to tell it to do the hot pink, DC14, actually no. Dang it. Failed command. Let's try again. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it a deep sky blue. All right, RS06 for the LED, and then 1E90FF. All right, this very last one changed. Can you see the difference? This one's a little more blue up here compared to the whites. Okay, now I can do the same thing and change the 6th LED, which will be 05. So RS:05. Let's give it a different color. Let's give it a green, 14FF00. Bingo. See, now those have been changed. Now this last one, RS:65404 for my 5th LED. Basically the number -1, right? Let's give it a cool purple, DB00FF. Bingo. Now we got blue and green, purple, okay? This is insanely tedious to go through and try to control hundreds of LEDs this way. That's not what this terminal emulation app is meant for. But it's a great way just to get in, make sure your LEDs are working. You can try them all out. You can try colors, and you can just do some simple testing. What I'm wanting to do with this now is take these colors, throw them behind some inserts, and see how they look. Now what I want to try to show is the difference in the patterns. So this is just the LED. Now, the LEDs in a real playfield aren't going to be literally touching the plastic. Okay? You're going to have kind of the thickness of the playfield about 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch below that you're going to want to have, and that will kind of aid in the diffusion so it's not quite so much of a hot spot exactly like that. Okay? But it'll be a little bit further out and it'll be a little bit bigger hot spot. It'll be a little bit more diffused. So if I hold that there, you put this purple one behind it, you kind of see the patterns it's thrown on the wood. So this is the circle with a starburst, okay? This is the circle with a radial pattern. The one that I said I really liked, looked really cool. I'm not sure, I don't think you'll be able to tell the difference that much here. Dang it. In the camera. Yeah, I don't think you can really see the difference on film. But they do look different. If I look at them and see how they, and I look at how they light up, it's definitely different. And so far the radial, honestly, is my favorite. I wish it got used more in pinball, at least for the clear, because every single ring of this gets picked up, or picks up, the light picks up every single one of those rings, so it looks way more full and saturated than just the starburst pattern does. Starburst pattern, it's more clear, you kind of see it, you know, at an angle you see it, but it's just, I don't know. I really like the radial one. I just think it makes the insert glow a little more is what I've come to find. Okay, so yeah, the radial pattern is really my favorite. There are some other patterns. A couple of the other funky ones I saw. I don't know if you'll be able to pick this up on the camera at all. This is what's called a gem shape. There you go, you can kind of see it there. It's flat in the circle in the center. On the outside it has kind of these like angled facets, kind of like a gemstone. I think you can kind of see that sometimes. But otherwise it's really just clear. It kind of looks neat, but honestly, it's just a window underneath your playfield. You see exactly what's below it. So I don't think there's a lot of value in this one. I don't see anything. It's hard to really get, at least with LEDs, maybe with some incandescent or something that's more diffused, but it's hard to see any of those gem cut, like, you know, facets around the edges and see anything out of it. So that one doesn't do anything for me, the gem one. There's also ones that look like this, that if you can see it's just like, instead of a starburst, it's just like a rough, almost kind of this like diamond tooth pattern underneath it. So there's a lot of edges. And this one actually does a really good job also of really kind of diffusing that hot spot and having more diffuse color throughout it than just the starburst square. And so it's definitely a different look, kind of more this kind of like retro, almost kind of like disco-y type look to it, right? But from just far away, it does a good job of just diffusing that light, and the whole thing glows more than just the regular starburst, in my opinion. Unfortunately, there's not, I don't see this in a round option, only in square and rectangular and just in these couple of sizes. So maybe there's other ones that are colored. These also come colored as well, not just clear. But I think these are good ones to use. I like these radial ones. The starburst is just a classic. I think I heard from one of the Silverball Chronicles pinball podcasts, right? That like Steve Ritchie was like one of the first ones to really push for like these starburst inserts on pinball machines to add some more life to the lighting. And it's kind of been like the norm ever since. It does a good job of like refracting and lighting up. And it's a fun pattern. Don't get me wrong. I like it. Maybe it's just the novelty of I haven't seen this radial pattern really on any machines very often. And so it's just different. It's caught my eye. But I do feel like it does a better job of just kind of glowing, diffusing the whole light. But anyway, it all comes down to preference, right? What shape insert, what size insert, what color insert versus clear. The world is your candy store, right? You can do whatever you want with it, make whatever colors, and just knock yourself out. Okay, last couple tips and tricks. Each one of those fast nanopore LED pinouts handle 64 LEDs. No more. That's as many as they can send signals to and control. Now, you don't have to put all 64 in a single channel. You can put 30 in one, 50 in another. You have 4 different channels there out of the nano controller. You can do up to 256 LEDs. If you have a really big chain or the wire becomes really, really long, if you notice fading of your LEDs at the end of your chain, you can insert more power, okay? And it's really literally as simple as take another line of 5 volt and run it. Instead of putting it in the front, come in here and put it on the end. And then that power will get distributed through the wires. It just has to do with just the fall off of the voltage between the poor connections through the resistance, right? If you're using a bunch of these crimp terminal connectors, which are really easy to replace, and I highly recommend them, but they're not going to give you quite as solid of a connection as like a true soldered pin would, right? And anyway, so you'll start to lose a little bit of power. There'll just be a little bit of degradation. The longer the line goes, the more connectors there are and the more wire there is. So if you have a really long line, and the rule of thumb, and Brian Madden has this great in the fast documentation also talking about LED wiring. I suggest you go read it. But basically, if you got a long line of LEDs, if it starts out with good strong light, but beyond that, either it's not as strong or the colors seem off, aren't quite right, at the end, put a 5 volt line, tap it in at the other end. If you still have some of those issues like in the middle of your chain, then run a thing of 5 volt right into the middle of the chain. That way you're getting, you know, the voltage is staying consistently 5 volts and not dropping off from beginning to end. And that'll really help a lot as far as fade and just inconsistency on the color signal being sent, the strength of the LED, the brightness, right? All of that, it'll help. Let's see, what else? We talked about making sure you wire it the right direction so you don't fry them, like I fried a couple of mine. We talked about that, probably more than we needed to. That was a little embarrassing of me. I should have known better. I think that's kind of the main things right now. As long as you wire them correctly and you put them into the nano and you insert enough power along the way. Oh, the extra power you run in, it's going to have a ground. Make sure that ground also goes down to your main ground anchor right before the power filter board. We don't want to be dirtying up our grounds. LEDs are also highly sensitive to interference. The EMI, electromagnetic interference, which basically means don't put these wires, don't grip them up with zip ties and run them right alongside the power running to your flippers. The high power voltage spiking through those lines, especially if they go in parallel along each other, it's going to really mess up these LEDs and cause them to flicker and screw up their colors and who knows what. So try to keep them in their own line. One of the rules of thumbs for wiring, right? They say high voltage high, low voltage low. Meaning the low voltage lines you can keep close to the board, to the playfield. The high voltage lines, set them off from your playfield with like little standoffs for like 4 or 5 inches and just keep them separate. That'll minimize interference, keep the high voltage together, get the other signals and low voltage lines away from them. If you do need to have wires cross, make sure you cross them at like a 90 degree and not at 45 or parallel. That's just going to give you more cause or more chance for interference. A straight 90 degree across if you need to. If you can, put some height between them as well. That'll solve a lot of headaches also. Okay, that's it. That's as far as I figured out. That's as much as I know at this point. Beyond that, I don't know. So we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Hope this was helpful and enjoyable and informative. And we're one step closer to being able to have inserts into the playfield, which I just can't wait for. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you next time. Like I always say, if you haven't started your own pinball machine, why not? Start it now. There's never been a better time. There's so much help out there. If I can figure this out, anybody can. All right, guys, take care. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.